Alright, what do we got this week? Top performing Steam games are no longer AAA. Alright, Capcom threatens to sue people. Shocker. Baldur's Gate 3, voice actor speaks on diversity. Alright, and Square Enix's revenue is still falling? That and more on this week's Old Man Rages at the News. And the week starts with Stop Killing Games. A quick recap of the short we made a few days ago. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement petition to the EU Parliament in order to prevent companies from removing access to already paid games from consumers and making it so they have to be left in a playable state. The signature reached the 1 million threshold it needed, with an additional 300,000 on top of that. Now, Video Games Europe wants to stop the movement from happening because of some reasonable requests, but mostly terrible and basically unthought out reasons. The members of Video Games Europe are big names like Ubisoft, Sega, Roblox, and many more. Their reasons are, quote, private servers are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data, remove illegal content, and combat unsafe community content would not exist and would leave rights holders liable. In addition, many titles are designed from the ground up to be online only. In effect, these proposals would curtail developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create. There's a big statement by them in a PDF they released, but as per usual, Reddit doesn't believe them, with user DeltaPeak1 saying they just don't want it cause then people would play the good old games rather than pay for the new shitty ones. And the user Xenoriot saying those claims only make sense for ongoing properties and games. If you're sunsetting a game, none of that matters to the company anymore. And I hope that we can convince the EU legislation that most of their claims are bullshit. I mean, if you're stopping an MMO, you're not gonna be maintaining the servers. Yeah, no. Let's see. The backend goes. You don't need to worry about payment transactions. And off the top of my head, server overhead goes out of the window if you're sunsetting an MMO. The privacy side, Sony, I'm gonna leave it at that. I mean, I can go on, but anyways. The journalists are also talking about this movement. Shocking, I know. The Gamer posted an article with the title Stop Killing Games. Campaigners say that industry pushback proves that they have a chance, which subtly implies that there might not have been a chance in the first place. The article talks about the Cursed Farms video and wrote a little bit more about it, saying, they say this is because offline modes are too expensive and that allows fan-made servers to run rampant, poses a risk to players. And this time I'm not being sarcastic, really. They actually wrote that. Scott hit back the points in the next paragraph as well. Now, I wish that last statement was the end of things, but the gamer of course has to find a way to protect corpos and wrote, in any case, the movement's mission has only been validated by the industry once again, as EA announced that it was shutting down Anthem, portraying the movement in a bad light again subtly. Oh boy. I mean, at this point I'm not surprised considering what's coming down the pipe here. Now, echoing the sentiments from Reddit, my 2 cents on the matter are simple, really. These publishers are going to do whatever they can to maintain their predatory practices against consumers. There is a reason why I don't see Valve, Larian, and, well, for better or worse, CDPR being part of Video Games Europe. These walking, talking suits are there to make money at any cost, and this movement is going to hinder them. And I'm all for it. If you haven't signed the petition and you're in the EU, do it, as this is a game changer for everyone across the world. I mean, let's be real. Valve didn't have a refund policy until someone sued them in, where was it, Australia or, I don't know, somewhere down under. And guess what? The whole world has refund policies on Steam now. Moving on, Polygon wants to trigger warnings in games like Death Stranding 2. What a fun time to be a gamer with Stop Killing Games and these sites trying to spew out random clickbait bullshit articles. But anyways, now I understand if you have to add a seizure warning at the start, like how it was with Space Marine 2, but the special cookies over at Polygon aren't thinking about that now, are they? They're looking at highly sensitive topics in the opening hours of the game. There's also the ESRB rating of the game, which gave it a 17 plus because of blood and gore, partial nudity, strong language, and violence. That should tell you all that you need to know here, really. But if those warnings aren't enough for you, then I don't think anything will be. These ratings exist for a reason at the end of the day. They even have a guide on how their ratings work, but God forbid these journalists from doing research, since they're avoiding that like the plague. Now, spoiler warning for the first part of Death Stranding 2. There will be a timestamp in the video description when the spoilers end. So, the example they gave is at the end of the first episode of the game, where Sam's adopted child dies, and later he shoots himself in the head. They tried to backtrack this by writing that the scene did a good job at what it was supposed to do, but if there was a trigger warning about this at the start of the game, then the scene would have had a smaller impact on the player. Because guess what? The player saw it coming a mile away because of the trigger warning. That would ruin the game's experience at the end of the day. Anyway, spoiler over. They also wrote this gem. Maybe that's not the case for you, and that's okay. This doesn't mean others shouldn't get that consideration, though. Oh, brother. Who wants to be spoiled about a game before they play it? When I played Bioshock, I knew next to nothing walking into that game, aside from it being a shooter and having, underwater vibes, and, that quote. That was a game that was released in 2007. Talk about a backlog of games that I want to get around playing. Bottom line, there is a reason why the ESRB rating was made, and it was to give a TLDR of what the game contains. And if you do get triggered by that content, you can just walk away instead of writing another slop article about how games are bad. But then, you wouldn't be working at Polygon. Moving on, or I'd like to say, as we are not done with Polygon just yet, because they love stirring up people, I suppose. They wrote an article about Ready or Not censorship and said it became a Steam top seller. Let's not forget that its recent reviews are mostly negative for the fact that it got so much backlash that they had to release a second post justifying it that had over 1.7k Jester awards. You know Steam's community thinks you're a clown when you have that amount of rewards. And if you open up the post, it has, 0 likes with over, 6,000 comments? At least as of the time of writing this. Okay, cool. The game reached number 15th on Steam's top sellers list. But the way Polygon wrote subtle adjustments instead of censorship is, for lack of better words, scummy at best, or bootlicking at worst. Every time I read more of these articles, I wonder why they defend corporations that much, but then I remember it's because they suck up to get early access to potentially get 1 or 2 additional clicks in order to spout their nonsense to an audience that doesn't know about their scummy practices, really. Moving on, in what can be described as a bolt from the blue for AAA companies and modern-day game journalists, The Gamer wrote an article saying about half of this year's top-performing Steam games have come from AA or indie studios. Yeah, the irony. Now, The Gamer mentions how Schedule 1, Repo, and Peak got a massive audience, and also mentioned how Clair Obscur got record-breaking sales, and they have found that 40% of the highest player count games on Steam are from indie devs or AA developers, which isn't a shock to me considering Most of the times, they get down on their knees and shove their faces into AAA gaming publishers' rectums in order to get early access or push modern audience slop. Maybe modern journalists would figure that stuff out with this article, but only time will tell. Also, if you're wondering what games they saw, they will be on the screen. Moving on, DEI the Failguard won the Game of the Year award. Oh, but don't worry, it's not from the actual Game Awards. It's from the dollar store version of it called the Gaming Awards. It also got another 2 allocates during that event, and well, good for it, I guess. Doesn't change the fact that it's the worst Dragon Age game out there at the moment, well, maybe for all times, considering how there's nothing so far prove otherwise or even indicate that another Dragon Age game is in the works, but hey, I digress. Also, the way Game Rant wrote, apart from taking home this major award, isn't true whatsoever. When you say major, it must mean over 80% of the audience agrees, and while on the surface that does seem like it, majority of Dragon Age fans will disagree with you. Even BioWare statistics from 2024 shows that Inquisition sold 12 million since then, and this is with it being handicapped as Epic exclusive at launch. The other games sold over 2 million in their first 2 months as well. At least the journal was honest this time, I'll give him that. Hold up, on second thought, I'll take back my compliments about this journal, since he called the mass dislike of the game review bombing campaign. I mean, we truly can't be 100% honest without pandering now, can we? I mean, like, cool that the LGBT community loves this game, and by all accounts it could have been a standalone game, not tied to the Dragon Age franchise at the end of the day, but, you know. Anyways, now for something unhinged. Someone is trying to spoof Jacob Takanashi's email using MK. He also asked that if you got one of these fake emails to send it his way, and showed the email he got from Google's authentication. I mean, this guy can't catch a break after some of his ex-colleagues decided to go after the guy, all because he landed a job with Hoyo for voicing a Genshin character. And people think the Genshin community is insane. Anyways, hope this situation gets resolved quickly and the asshat that does this gets what's coming to them. Now, on to another insane situation. Capcom might be suing people for insulting them online. Yes, you heard that correctly. On the 4th of July, Pirate Nations on Twitter showed an excerpt from Capcom's website, an important notice, and entitled it, and I quote, Capcom now may sue you or contact the police about insulting them online. Yep, it got me curious too, so I dug around and found where it came from. It's from their JP website, and there might be some stuff lost in translation, like how it says slander twice over here, and I'll be using Pirate Nation screenshots because they seem more cohesive than what I managed to find. And if you can read Japanese, you can go directly to their official website and read it there. I don't know, leave it in the comments what it says. Though, in terms of what was translated, it says, and I quote, though customer support and review and posting sites on SNS and game sales sites slander, denial of characters, etc. to our officers and employees by naming individuals or evoking specific individuals, acts such as threats of harm, threats of obstruction of business, and harassment have been confirmed in some cases. Now, this goes without saying, it's fine and all to protect your employees. I mean, if some maniac online threatens to game end your employee and you're a good company, I'm wholeheartedly behind you going after the guy until he's so far in jail that, I don't know, he ain't getting out anytime soon. But this can easily spiral out of control and allow Capcom to silence people who criticize their games and call it harassment. The other side of the coin. It also doesn't help their case that this came after the quote-unquote bug fixes for Monster Hunter Wilds. Most of this is obvious stuff, but they want to take it to the next level by saying they'll get the law involved in all of this. If they can find something that fits that bill, like me saying like Monster Hunter series can fall into slander or defamation, and they can bring out lawyers into it, even though that's my opinion. Because we all know everybody's opinion online matters, right? Until they hurt your opinion, then that opinion becomes false, bad, you get cold words, doxed, the works. But I digress. They are also cancelling a presentation on Monster Hunter Wilds performance, and to no one's surprise, PC Gamer is also covering their asses. They write about how Capcom cancelled the presentation about the performance and optimization in Monster Hunter Wilds that was planned for this month. But they also write that, quote, and I quote, Monster Hunter Wilds developer faces harassment stemming from an ongoing outpouring of negative sentiment about the game's performance issues. Yeah man, I too agree that leaving a negative review counts as harassment. Okay, Capcom, the greatest company of them all. Give me that ass. I need to suck on that rectum now. Oh, brother. This statement also stinks of corporate bootlicking. Capcom hasn't made an official statement about the reasoning behind the talks cancellation, but there's more than enough cause to speculate. An overwhelming majority of recent negative ones. Reviews are centered on performance complaints. Complaints that persist despite texture streaming fixes in the latest title update. Yeah, if only the textures were the only issue with the game. But anyways, I recommend going into the reviews. You're gonna learn pretty quickly what's going on there. PC Gamer also continues to mention that there has been harassment, but instead of taking a screenshot and censoring the names and profile pictures, they just claim that it magically exists in the world. Yeah, I don't think I need to say any more on this, since it would be a disservice to the world if I keep this up. But you know what? I'm gonna leave you with this. Delusions. Moving on, Valve blocked the fascist mod for Mountain Blade Warband in South Korea, and the mod author took it down entirely. This mod basically took Mountain Blade Warband to a modern day setting and represents the 1980s, I'm gonna butcher this, Wanju Uprising? Anyways, sorry if I butchered this to anybody from South Korea that's listening, but anyways, creating a revisionist narrative. The mod also made it seem that government's actions were justified and moral by making the protesters heavily armed and, quote, terroristic. This made the South Korean government take action and block the distribution of the mod, to which Valve complied and made it unavailable in South Korea only. After that happened, the mod author removed it from Steam altogether. Moving on, a Baldur's Gate 3 actor warns that diversity is being removed from some games. And I'm all for it! Considering most of it was just walking billboards of checklists that tick every box they think will get them more brownie points on Blue Sky. Naturally, when they can, they will just throw politics into the mix. This time at least it is warranted, cause it talks about Donald Trump's election and how he planned on ditching DEI initiatives and policies which led to companies trying to get favors with the president. Which makes sense, cause companies don't care about the individual, they care about making money. And if they believe a billboard with checklists will make some money, they will do it. They also wrote that they had an interview with actor Samantha Bryant, who played Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3, told them about the game devs who had their work censored. And I quote, as the industry appears to be bowing down to the regressive politics of Trump's second term. I quote, and I hope it continues this way. Maybe companies will realize that selling games to an audience that doesn't exist is not profitable. Gamers always vote with their wallets and have shown it with Dustborn and Concord. Naturally, they had to bring the They had to bring the Gamergate movement into it to try to sell the narrative that DEI is oh so good for the industry, especially using Baldur's Gate 3 as an argument because it sold 15 million copies. Yeah, let's just ignore the fact it's an authentic D&D experience in a single-player format. It must be because you can play as a black gay character. Anyways, a former PlayStation boss says 200 million AAA budgets mean publishers greenlit fewer games. And I quote, something has to be done. From that idle alone, I will tell you that big budget doesn't mean successful game. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida appeared on the Kid and Crystal channel and explained how it, quote, felt like Big was safer during the PlayStation 4 era. He also added, it may be counterintuitive, but if we spend enough money to make the big game, the chance of success felt increased because everybody wanted to play bigger games with more beautiful graphics and more realistic looking characters, more gameplay hours, end quote. But here's the thing, people these days want games like Expedition 33 because it's just a game that a small group of people passionately develop with player first in mind. Most of these AAA games just want you to spend as much money on them as possible and play as long as possible so you can show investors, hey, they like our games because of how long people play it for, which is something Expedition 33 didn't focus on. Now, on to another train wreck. This one is a banger to read, just from the title alone. Even an EA exec is taking shots at Xbox now, calling out the obsession with, quote, short-term results, end quote. Man, you've fallen low when EA can take pot shots at ya. The article got it a bit wrong here though. It's not just Xbox, it was across Microsoft in general, which included Xbox in it. But it mentioned how it was, quote, facing backlash from the gaming community and wider industry after the layoffs that happened. Almost as if reporting record-breaking sales or something, and prior to reporting that, you firing people is a way to boost the numbers. Now, the general manager for EA Japan tweeted out, particularly in recent years, foreign companies have increasingly demanded short-term results for large-scale investments, and there are not infrequent cases where a change in direction is made to meet shareholder expectations before sufficient time has been invested. Yeah, and this is probably why Concord started in the first place, and when shareholders were like, hey, this ain't working, they just shut it down instead of fixing it to save some amount of money. A user asked, what are your thoughts on gaming projects that have been in development for a long time, 7 to 10 years and still counting, and there's no end in sight? Another person replied with, wouldn't it be smart to pull the plug and repool the resources elsewhere? That would benefit from the injection if so. And the exec agrees with him, saying, and I quote, canceling feels like the worst move. That's a decade of work, potentially a quarter of someone's entire career, company completely lost. Even if the final product isn't what people originally expected, I think it still deserves to ship. Something is better than nothing for both the team and for the players. Yeah, I feel like the portion should have been called for in Concord's case, but anyway, I digress. The final thing he added basically felt like a jab, in my opinion, at the Perfect Dark reboot. But also, don't announce games when they're still half-baked. If there's no clear delivery path, no realistic scope, just don't show it yet. Hype with no follow-through burns trust both for fans and the studio inside. This guy really knows what he's talking about. It's surprising he is working at EA of all places. Moving on into something that I consider absurdity, Blue Archive terminated their Steam review event. For some context, Blue Archive released an event where if their Steam page reaches 10,000 reviews. Regardless if it's positive or negative, players will receive an in-game award. And for those who have read Steam's TOS, you will know what I'm about to say. This is against Steam's TOS, specifically breaking 2 rules. Don't solicit reviews in exchange for any games, DLC, money, or other rewards. And don't ask customers to review your product from within your application. So, the people at Nexon probably realized they broke the TOS and just cancelled it. Steam has yet to apply any form of punishment, but I'll put it in the description if they do. Bunch of idiots. Speaking of idiots, Nintendo banned a Switch 2 owner because he was playing a secondhand Switch 1 game. Man, the greed is unbelievable with this company. This came from a Reddit post on r/Switch where the user DManday posted, "Switch 2 users, be careful buying used Switch 1 games. You can get banned if a bad actor dumped it." Having said that, Nintendo's support is amazing and will help you get back up and running. He stated that he got banned after downloading patches for 4 Switch 1 games he bought from Facebook Marketplace. After he contacted customer support, he got his account unbanned. Now, if you're curious what happens when you get banned on Switch, you just lose your online services. Going back to where I found this from, the user BG5203 asked, "So, if I buy used games from GameSpot that happen to be copied to a MIG, I'm just fucked?" And the user Iki77 basically said what I was thinking. Yep, they're forcing everyone to rethink if they should buy a secondhand game or give Nintendo more money because on the off chance it's copied to a MIG, your $450 console is bricked. What a fun time to be a Nintendo fan, ain't it? Moving on, Dishonored Director Rafael Colantino called Game Pass an unsustainable mode for the industry. On Twitter, Ratchetako asked him and Colantino responded, "I think Game Pass is an unsustainable model that has been in the industry, increasingly damaging to the industry for decades, subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money. But at some point, reality has hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up." He also mentioned in another reply, "I'm fed up with all the BS they fed us at first, like, don't worry, it doesn't impact sales, only to admit years later that it totally does. No shit it does. Really?" But even then, the fact that most AAA games cost $70+ doesn't help the sales either, which is why some people would prefer services like Game Pass. Let's not even mention that some games have seasonal passes and paid versions of battle passes. Yeah, the monetization situation is crazy and only going to get worse, especially on a AAA level. Moving on, a post on r/Subnautica emerged from the user Specialist Target 461, where he started a boycott on Subnautica 2 and attached an image saying, "Do not buy Subnautica 2. The publisher, Krafton, has fired all 3 original founders of Unknown Worlds and delayed the game to 2026, so the devs won't receive $250 million in bonuses. Do not support these shady business practices. Do not buy Subnautica 2. The post has 56,000 likes, but it also is locked. The user Data Beast also said, "What you can do is take it off your Steam wishlist, where it's currently the number 2 most wishlisted game on Steam." That should send a message. And I can get behind this movement, really. Firing all 3 of the original founders for no reason and not giving people their well-earned bonuses is quite scummy. I don't like how the mods log the posts, however they haven't deleted it yet, so I mean, it's something. On top of that, the trailer does have a lot of comments talking about the devs and how they deserve the bonus they got robbed of. Now, I was kind of expecting this to be that for this topic. However, the founders have filed a lawsuit against Krafton. Surprise, surprise. One of the founders, Charlie, also mentioned that eventually the details will become public because the fans deserve the full story. This probably came from Krafton trying to use them as a scapegoat because they, quote, made multiple requests to Charlie and Max to resume their roles as game directors and technical directors, respectively, but both declined to do so. Krafton also claimed that Subnautica 2 development suffered from, quote, repeated confusions in direction and significant delays in the overall project schedule, and got pinned on absence of core leadership. Oh, brother, give me a break. Man, no matter how I look at it, Krafton is having a crash out moment after being caught with a hand in a cookie jar. Moving on, the Tales of the Shire really isn't looking good. The game is 2 weeks away and doesn't have 30,000 followers to its name. For a Lord of the Rings game, you'd think that it would be amazing and all, but it flopped. The new Deep Rock Galactic game doesn't have a release date, but it has almost double the followers and bypassed by a mile in wishlists. Hell, people are more excited for Europa Universalis 5, and that's made by Paradox, the company infamous for releasing 20 plus DLCs for a game before sunsetting it. Make of that what you will. And lastly, Square Enix's European branch reports worsening financial losses compared to previous years. The Square Enix's Europe branch posted an operating loss of 12.57 billion yen, or around 72.9 million euros, and 12.64 billion yen net loss. The revenue was down by 7% year over year. You know, that's not so bad, right? The ethics department is gonna save us. Yeah, how's that working out for ya? They also haven't released anything major yet. Like in 2 months we're getting Final Fantasy Tactics, and in another month we'll get Dragon Quest HD remakes, but well, that's about it really. There's no other concrete releases. The deficit is also worse since last financial year, when it was reported they lost approximately $50 million and a net loss of roughly $47 million. You might think that Square Enix needs to start making games instead of NFT bullshit. But hey, the ethics department doesn't seem to think that's a good idea. And they're the ethics department, you know. Oh, brother, can those assholes and get to making good games and not NFT bullshit. But anyways, that's it for this week. Like it if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, leave a comment, and I'll see you next week.